In a world where your data is constantly under attack, one company stands for your digital freedom. Introducing CALIX Solutions, your gateway to ultimate online privacy and secure cryptocurrency trading. Meet the Liberty laptop. With its modified OS and advanced tracking prevention, it's your shield against surveillance. Access restricted areas, use recommended security software, and browse with confidence. Your digital footprint? Virtually non-existent. For the crypto pros, we present the Crypto Laptop. Pre-configured on premium hardware for secure trading. Optimized for your favorite wallets and exchanges, it's the fortress your digital assets deserve. Both laptops come with expert individual training and support. You're never alone in your journey to digital empowerment. At CALIX Solutions, we put you in control. No more worrying about data breaches or compromised transactions. Ready to join the revolution? Visit calixsolutions.io and choose your perfect laptop today. Plus, become an affiliate and earn while sharing the power of digital freedom. CALIX Solutions. Unlock your digital freedom. Give us a call or text at 702-845-8276 or visit us directly at calixsolutions.io.
Okay. Good morning and welcome to the Bitcoin Ben Daily Show. This is Dr. J sitting in for Ben today. I hope you're having a wonderful morning with Bitcoin on the rise. In 1960s, a weather scientist named Edward Lorenz, and he entered a bunch of data into the computer to predict the weather. And the model predicted a certain weather. And he came back and he rounded off those numbers from the third decimal place to maybe the second. He found that the results were entirely different. And that was the foundation of what is known in physics as chaos theory, where the science of the unpredictable happens, where minute, very, very tiny changes in the what we call in physics initial conditions create very significant changes in the final outcome. And what you're witnessing today is chaos theory at its finest. I'm going to talk a little bit today about physics, about what is chaos, how does what is entropy, how does energy play into the equation, and why is Bitcoin rising because of chaos and entropy. So basically, chaos theory tells us that very small changes, for example, a single tweet from a tech mogul can ripple outwards and create cascading consequences in the stock price, in the price of Bitcoin, in the price of commodities, in the price of equities and stocks. Just think of the weather system. Just like a puff of wind in Tokyo or Indonesia might create a storm in New York, it's called the butterfly effect. And there was a book called by Edward Lorenz, the mathematician, who basically said the flapping of the wings of a butterfly in Indonesia can cause a storm or a hurricane in Hawaii. And in other words, tiny variations in the models, in the systems, in the policies create entirely different outcomes, even with the slight changes, because these systems are so complex. Just like the weather systems, the financial markets are exquisitely sensitive to initial conditions. Now, in physics, there's another concept called entropy. Some of you may know it's basically the measure of disorder in a system. When you hold a glass in your hand and you drop it, it breaks into 1,000 pieces. But you've never seen 1,000 pieces from the floor just come together and form a perfect glass. Chaos and entropy works towards disorder. That is, the molecules scatter. Systems go from perfection to imperfection. That is the nature of the universe. That is the second law of thermodynamics, a universal truth. Entropy always increases. Energy spreads, systems decay, and chaos creeps in. But here's the twist. Chaos is not just about destruction and disorder. It is also creative. It is regenerative. In the swirl of disorder, new patterns emerge like stars forming out in the galaxies. Out of this financial disorder that we are in right now, new winners are going to emerge. And yes, Bitcoin is one of them. Hold that thought. We're going to go from the very abstract to the concrete in just a moment. You are probably looking at X as I do, and you see the truth about Los Angeles riots that are going on. The city is tense. Protests are randomly erupting over immigration, potential inequality, financial problems, fueled by a dollar that buys you less and less every day. The traffic jams make humans frustrated. A single fender bender creates chaos. Classic chaos theory at work. You take that already tense environment and you create a spark, a tiny one. It amplifies the gridlock. In the streets, the voices rise. The system is already broken. It's teetering on the edge of collapse. And all you have to do is add that spark, that tiny spark, whether it comes from George Soros or some of the other leftists who are really communists pretending to be leftists. And an economy like that, like the weather system, which is very complex, the entire thing has been pushed to limits. But that didn't happen overnight. This is not something new. You need to start looking at the patterns that are forming. We have had decades of monetary policy, central banks printing money as if it was confetti. They have eroded, completely eroded the trust in the dollar. Inflation is creeping in. Savings are dwindling. 401k plans are gone. And the middle class is certainly starting to feel the squeeze. That what's happening in the streets of LA is simply a microcosm of the physical disorder, which is a manifestation, in my view, of the financial system, which is at this point fraying at the edges. I'm telling you this because I want to lay the foundation, the environment within which you're witnessing. They say context is really important. The context is we are in a frying pan. People are already disgusted. They are tired. They're broke. The national debt is through the roof. And it is in that tense environment that these minor changes, which have been made over a long period of time, are starting to manifest. But to understand what's happening now, we need to rewind a little bit. Let's take a stroll through economic history and start seeing the follies. Many of these little changes, many of these little butterfly wings that have faltered, that have created the winds of consequences that we don't even fully understand. Once upon a time, money was simple: gold and silver coins, tangible, finite, anchored. They traded for centuries. But in the 20th century, things got complicated. There was a fellow called John Maynard Keynes. He was a very famous economist, and I only know that because my dad was an economist. I studied physics. He was quite a dapper fella. In the 1930s, he argued that governments could basically tame economic cycles by spending more and when there were downturns and tweaking the interest rates, right? His foundational ideas birthed economic policy, giving central banks godlike powers to manipulate money supply. And in principle, that was not a bad idea. Look, when you have an economic downturn, if you can go ahead and invest into it, it creates jobs, it lifts the boat. But our governments and our money printing machines forgot the counterpoint to what he said. There was a second part to what he said. He just didn't say, go and spend money when the economy is down. He also said, go ahead and save money in the good times. Now, that was the part the governments completely forgot. They just printed and printed and printed and continued to get us into a situation we are in. Then fast forward to 1971, President Nixon severed the dollar's connection to gold, unleashing an era of what we now call fiat currency. Money basically became a promise backed by nothing other than trust us. We're the US government, and we're the central bank, we're the Federal Reserve, and we can print dollar bills at will. And print they did. Through recessions, they printed money. Through wars, they printed money. Through bailouts, they printed money. Through good times, they printed money. Even when the taxes coming in were amazing, they printed money. And the money supply ballooned. By 2025, the year we are in, the good year of the Lord here, the national debt, of course, is north of $35 trillion, and inflation has gnawed away at the dollar's value. You know, a cup of coffee costs, sets you back at least $5 to $6. This is devaluation, plain and simple. It's a slow bleeding of the economic system. So as you think about today's context, as you think about Bitcoin, as you think about why it's going to $109 and $110 and $115, you got to understand the context that has led to it, the 1,000 flaps of that butterfly's wing that has landed us where we are. Now, monetary theory evolved to justify this. Milton Friedman preached control of, there's another famous economist who basically said, you can print more money to quote unquote stabilize economies, which again, as a policy, as a economic theory, wasn't a bad theory. But when the central banks took that line out of context and used it as a mechanism, as a justification to print unlimited amounts of money, godly amounts of money, ungodly amounts of money, it became chaotic. Entropy started creeping in to the financial system. You will hear terms like quantitative easing. Well, very fancy. It simply is a fancy term for flooding the markets with cash. And that became the go-to to fix every crisis there was. If the Congress needed more budgets, you did quantitative easing. If there was a war in Ukraine that you had to send another $200 billion, what did you do? You did quantitative easing. Any problem you could give to the politician or to the federal banker, the big fat cat sitting there and figuring out what you should do with your money and how they control it, was quantitative easing. Fancy words. The result? A system, an entire system that is addicted to cheap money, where asset bubbles inflate while wages are stagnating. Chaos creeps in, results in riots and crashes. But what it's really doing is it's eroding the stability of the financial system. And this is the context at which Bitcoin enters the stage. Born in 2009 with Satoshi, Bitcoin is chaos incarnate, a rebellion, essentially against the system that I just talked about. After all, Bitcoin is a decentralized ledger, not a centralized federal government. It's a cryptographic fortress supported and protected by 850 exahashes. That's a lot of numbers, a lot of zeros, by the way, 10 to the power of 18 or something. And no government can break into this vault. And unlike fiat currency, Bitcoin supply is capped at 21 million coins, which now becomes immune to the whimsical ideas of the central bankers who can just keep on printing money. So basically, out of chaos, the chaos in the streets of Los Angeles, and the chaos in the federal government, and the chaos in the economic policies, and the chaos of the dollar being eroded, Bitcoin is coming in to fill that void. Bitcoin just didn't happen. It is a natural outcome of a chaotic system that we live in. So let's connect the dots. Bitcoin's backbone is the blockchain, a system that is mathematically maintained by miners solving complex problems, the proof of work. Vast amounts of energy is being used to support this blockchain, to support this network. There are server farms and there are mining equipment and energy consumption. In fact, Bitcoin uses more power today than most countries, most small countries certainly. And the energy is being expended to do what? It is being expended to create order. A secure blockchain in a chaotic world. In this craziness that you're seeing around you, Bitcoin stands as that one mechanism that is bringing order, a semblance of sanity to the crazy world that we live in. And this mathematical order that Bitcoin is creating block by block on the chain defies the centralized systems of the old. Markets, like weather systems, are driven by feedback loops. When inflation spikes or faith in the dollar, the fiat wanes, investors flock to alternatives. They used to flock to alternatives like gold. You used to hear in the markets, every time there was volatility, every time there was chaos in the market, every time there was the Gulf of Hormuz was being blocked out by the Iranians who are firing shots across the bow of the oil tankers through which 80% of the world's oil moves, gold would spike up. Well, now there's a new sheriff in town, and Bitcoin is bringing order in a world of chaos. Money is starting to flow into Bitcoin. You are seeing governments invest in Bitcoin. You are seeing states invest in Bitcoin. You are seeing, Ben, I think, talked about it yesterday, over 500 enterprises, corporations investing in Bitcoin as a treasury. People are starting to, retail investors are starting to buy Bitcoin. And there is going to be a shortage of available Bitcoin to buy, which is going to continue to put pressure on Bitcoin to rise in value as a store of value, as a mechanism, as a network through which transactions can be settled quickly, effectively, cheaply. So Bitcoin's price, as volatile as it is, and as volatile as a storm, reflects this chaos. It is breeding opportunity. As central banks continue to print dollars because they don't know anything else, they have no other weapon. Bitcoin becomes the hedge. It becomes a Noah's Ark and a lifeboat in the sea of uncertainty. So if you look at back to Los Angeles, what is happening here, because that's on my mind too. There's chaos in the streets. It is simply a microcosm of global unrest. The European Union, an unelected, useless body, is now actively trying to undermine Bitcoin. They're trying to block it. They're trying to push CBDCs, the antithesis of everything that Bitcoin stands for. The antithesis of freedom is a central bank digital currency. From Buenos Aires to Berlin, people have lost faith in the financial fiat monetary system. Argentina's collapse of the peso, Europe grappling with inflation, the US Fed's printing money as if it's going out of style, is all causing global distrust. This is not just a Los Angeles thing. And I'm not talking about or predicting doom and gloom, but I'm simply looking at the tea leaves. If you look at the pattern historically, how chaos has been created, none of this has happened overnight. All of this has been fueled by little events, piece by piece, that result in outcomes that very few expect. They call these the black swan events. Do we expect a black swan event? Well, it wouldn't be black swan if we expected it, but we can rationally theorize that black swan events can happen, whether it is the riots in Los Angeles spreading to Chicago, spreading to New York, all these communist-controlled states, spreading to other countries, spreading to Europe. And in that hot frying pan, already depressed with heat and fire and dwindling bank accounts, in that state of tension, when you pour a little more oil into it, when you move a tiny piece, the system starts to collapse. And that is a outcome that is not unlikely. I actually think that it gets a little bit worse before it gets better. And Bitcoin turns out to be untethered from all nations. Bitcoin is not for any one country. It is not any one country's Federal Reserve. It's not owned by any one country. It becomes a global bet against chaos, a digital gold in a completely fractured world. Bitcoin is breaking away from all the markets. Look at it. Every stock, every equity, every bond, every commodity tends towards zero against Bitcoin. And so Bitcoin is untethered from any one nation. It is untethered and uncorrelated to all of these other assets that are in the market. And the only bet you're making in buying Bitcoin right now for yourself, for your family, for your company, for your country, for your state, the only bet you're making is that this frying pan of this world, this hugely tense environment we are in, a tiny spark somewhere, somehow, is going to cause events to happen that neither you nor I can predict. And those events won't be pretty. So Bitcoin's rise today to $109, $110, I don't know, Zoltan, what's that? But Bitcoin's rise right now is not just about economics. It's really about chaos. It's about energy. It's about information. It's about the blockchain providing pure transparency starkly in contrast and counterpoint to the central banks and to the European Union. When chaos is harnessed the right way, entropy can be redirected, just as stars that collapse form gas clouds, and the gas clouds under gravity come together and start creating planets and solar systems and life. Bitcoin emerges from this disorder, this failing system, this world full of strife, to build a new kind of order, the kind of order that's built with code, with math, with consensus, with proof of work. And yet, the irony of it all, Bitcoin's energy consumption draws fire from the critics who call this an environmental disaster. But isn't that what the nature of entropy really is? To create order in one place, you must create and expend energy somewhere else. That's just physics, folks, and there's nothing you can do to change that. So as these mining computers hum and the blockchain continues to grow and Bitcoin's value continues to rise, it's not because Bitcoin is perfect, but because it is a response to a world that's spiraling out of control. So my friends, chaos theory teaches us that very small, tiny events, one policy misstep, one little tweet, or one protest in the streets can and does reshape the world. Entropy reminds us that disorder in our world is inevitable. There's nothing you can do about it. There is going to be disorder, but from it is where new systems arise. The streets of LA, the devaluation of the dollar, rise of the Bitcoin, these are all threads of the same tapestry, woven by forces of chaos and forces of energy. So Bitcoin's price soaring today is not just a number, it's a signal, a reflection that the old trust systems are crumbling. The dollar's decline, fueled by decades of flawed economic theory, has created this vacuum, and into that vacuum steps Bitcoin through chaos, through decentralization. It's unstoppable. So for all of you guys out there who believe, is Bitcoin real? Is it fugazi? No, folks, this is inevitable. It's as real as it gets. If you believe that the chaos in the world is real, just look around in the streets of LA. Then you must believe that Bitcoin is real. Because from that chaos, it is exactly what is fueling Bitcoin's rise. Bitcoin is writing its own story, one block at a time, one hash at a time, and one rebellion at a time. And what is feeding it is the chaos in this world. And as long as there is chaos in this world, there will be Bitcoin, and it will rise. Now tell me, ladies and gentlemen, what's your next move going to be for this end game? We are right at that point of inflection, and Zoltan will take a quick ad break in about 30 seconds. We have laid out the foundation of why Bitcoin is real, not by telling you how many exahashes and how many SHA-256 algorithms are involved in it, but by telling you the nature of the world. And the nature of the world today is chaos. And out of this chaos, entropy will have to be tamed. Bitcoin is the only asset that is taming entropy. We're going to come right back after these messages and talk about how are we going to work together to get more exposure to Bitcoin, to promote Bitcoin, to tell our friends about Bitcoin, to make money from Bitcoin, and really understand why this is inevitable. Over to you, Zoltan. Attention visionaries and pioneers, the future of wealth is here, and it's spelled Bitcoin, Bitcoin. Introducing the exclusive Loans for Bitcoin program at the Bitcoin Ben Crypto Club, where your good credit unlocks 0% interest loans for up to 2 years, or term loans up to $250,000 spread over 7 to 12 years. Why wait? Use this capital to acquire the world's fastest appreciating asset, Bitcoin. With prices hovering around 94,000 and projections aiming much higher by the year's end, the time to act is now. Leverage isn't just for Wall Street anymore. Arbitrage the low cost of your loan against Bitcoin's explosive growth. It's smart finance for the modern investor. And privacy matters. Our no KYC Bitcoin purchase program ensures you buy and self-custody your assets in your own wallet. Your keys, your Bitcoin, your future. And as the world shifts to digital currencies, be ahead of the curve. Front-run corporations, governments, in this greatest financial revolution of our times. I'm Jay Bose, CEO of Bitcoin Ben Crypto Club. Call or text us today at 941-413-6920 and get started on that loan application. Secure your legacy. You will thank yourself tomorrow. And welcome back. I want each one of you to have Bitcoin. You're members of the Bitcoin Ben Crypto Club. Whether it is 0.1 Bitcoin or a whole Bitcoin or 100 Bitcoins, get yourself some exposure to it. We have, and Ben has lit all of the fires with creating new clubs, places where people can walk in. They can walk up to an ATM machine and get their Bitcoin easily, effectively. You can talk to other members. There's education. A lot of that has been done. But education alone is not sufficient. You need to act. We have created programs for you. We have created programs where you can do bulk Bitcoin purchase. Most of the exchanges have limits. They make you go through a tremendous amount of rigmarole with KYC and AML and every three-letter acronym they can throw in towards you to discourage you from buying the most valuable asset in the world, which is Bitcoin. We don't do that. If you're a member of our private membership association, we pool our money, and a lot of it. Many of our members are sending very significant amounts of money to buy Bitcoin. We buy Bitcoin in bulk for you. It is available to our members. It is a valuable tool that you have available to you through your membership. So avail of that benefit. Buy bulk Bitcoin. And by the way, if you don't have the money and the liquidity to buy Bitcoin, then look at the different alternatives that you have. Look at your credit. If it is good, you can apply for a loan. And any rational person will tell you that if you can get a loan at 10% and you got Bitcoin appreciating at 50 or 60% per year, that's a clean arbitrage play that is quite obvious. Michael Saylor's doing it in droves. He's actually applying a lot of leverage as well, multiplying his gains. But even simply taking a loan at a lower interest rate and investing it and just hodling Bitcoin is going to give you returns that are better than any bank can give you. When you keep your money in a bank, you're getting a 2% interest rate. Your dollar is devaluing by 9 to 10% every year. You're 8% in the hole. When you take that money and you buy Bitcoin and you hodl it, or you take a loan at 10, 12% and you hodl it with Bitcoin, you're making a net spread of positive 40%, 50% less than 10% cost of money. You're better off doing that. If you have a home where you have a ton of equity, right now we're in this really, I would say, interesting situation where the prices, the home prices, are almost at the highest levels, unlivable, kind of unbuyable. The sentiment is that it's the most difficult to buy a house for average person in America today. That scale is very high. You have a lot of equity for those of you who have homes. You have equity, and a black swan event can happen. Catastrophic market crashes can happen and do happen, and They happened in the recent past in 2008, where people lost everything. There's no reason for you to keep that equity in a unsecure place like home equity, where the bank always gets their first hand on the value of your home. So as the home price decreases, as it depreciates downwards, which is expected to happen, the first thing that goes is your equity, not the bank's equity, right? So they still own the percentage of the house that they own. You start owning less and less. So move that money over. We have the Home to Hodl program. Holly and Nathan have been doing an amazing job of that. We've had a number of our investors who have used the program to get the home equity loans, and through the bulk Bitcoin purchase program, they have purchased large amounts of Bitcoin, and they're holding on to it. And every time the price goes up, it makes them feel better. It feels good. I won't deny that, right? I love the fact that it's going up. But for those of you who have large amounts of equity, don't let it go down. At least preserve the value. Put it into something that is actually the most viable asset today across all markets, across equities and commodities and bonds. It's the most valuable asset today. At the same time, some of our members are really they really believe that Bitcoin's going to keep increasing in price. And I do too. And so does Michael Saylor. And so does Kathy Woods. And so does Sherpa in our office. They believe that not because they're fanatical or religious about it. They believe it because they're coming at it and looking at the world around us. Is chaos increasing? Yes. That means Bitcoin will increase in price. Is scarcity dropping? 21 million coins? Yes. You can't print any more of Bitcoins. Price is going to go up. Is the Bitcoin usage going up? Yes, absolutely. The usage is going up. Is Bitcoin's demand going to rise? Yes. Because governments are buying it and corporations are buying it and BlackRock is buying it and ETFs are being created and new derivative products around Bitcoin are being created by the largest of the financial institutions. Are new wallets being activated? Absolutely. The number of people piling in? Absolutely. Is the network exahash increasing? The network complexity increasing? Absolutely. What does that tell you? It means that the miners are optimistic. When they're making investments into putting more and more and more energy into this force field, what do you think they expect? Do you think they expect the price to go down? They don't. They expect the price to go up. And so should you. And some of our investors have already started receiving their monthly payouts from their mining activities. Less than 2 months ago, April, May, June, 2.5 months ago when we started the program, Bitcoin was at $82, $82,000. The first round of patriots and the true Wild West investors, the ones who were willing to take the chances, came in and said, Jay, we're going to invest in mining with you. And so we put the teams together and we collected the money and we hodled the Bitcoin with our lending partners, and we took the proceeds and we invested them into mining farms in Iowa and Dubai and Texas and Missouri and Mexico. We went all over the world and found low-cost power. And less than 45 days later, we had machines deployed. And as of the end of May, the first week of June, we sent out checks of tens of thousands of dollars to our members who had invested in Bitcoin mining, just like that, clockwork. This is not an investment that your traditional venture investor does, where you put in money, you're a venture investor. 18 months later, you say, well, it's going to take us at least 18 months to get to revenue, to break even in another 2 years. And then eventually, it's just the nature of how things are. Nope, folks, that's not how nature of everything is. Bitcoin is a very special thing. Mining can turn money within 30 days. We're sending out checks to people right now. Their investment is earning them money every single month within 30 days and 45 days of their investment. The return on investment is well over 60, 70%, much higher than Bitcoin, actually. And it's happening right now. You get cash in your wallet every single month. What other investment do you know where you invest $1 million and a month later you start receiving cash? Think of all the other venture investments you have done. There is nothing that comes close to the opportunity that has presented itself right now. And as the Bitcoin price continues to rise, the cost of mining that coin remains the same. It's very simple. It's an operational cost. We've already bought the servers for our investors. Those servers are already hosted where we have a long-term 4-year contract. The price doesn't change. The power, electricity, we have a 10-year power purchase agreement, which says the cost of electricity will be 6.5 cents per kilowatt hour, or whatever the right price might be for the different locations. That's not going to change. So in other words, if I'm producing Bitcoin at $48,000, because that's a hard cost, that cost is going to remain consistent month after month for the next 4 years, because that's what the contract is. But when Bitcoin is $100,000 and my cost is of making a coin and mining is $50,000, the profit was $50,000. When the price of Bitcoin becomes $150,000, my cost of making the same Bitcoin remains $50,000. I just made $100,000 that month. And when that price of Bitcoin is $250,000 and my cost of making the coin is still $50,000, I made $200,000 that month. So that's called a call option. So as Bitcoin price rises, the amount of money you're going to be making per month is being amplified. And by the way, our program doesn't require you to sell your Bitcoin. We custody it safely with our loan partners. And at the end of the 4 years, you get all your Bitcoin back, plus all the gains that you have made. So this is a very powerful program. And this program, mining program through our Bitcoin Ben Crypto Club, has been available to some of our bigger investors initially, investors who invested $2 million and $3 million, multiple Bitcoin. We just closed a pool for our first pool of investors with 3 to 5 Bitcoin. We just completed that round, and we're going to be deploying those millions of dollars worth of miners that we have in this first pool. I fully anticipate creating another pool where half to 1 Bitcoin will be accepted. And, somewhere between, basically, I might start from 1 to 3 Bitcoin, but we might go down a little bit. But that'll be about a month out. I'm actually traveling to a couple of locations where I'm talking with mining companies and hosting companies that are willing to do more retail type of deployments, smaller deployments. But there's always an economies of scale. And so this is where the benefit comes in. If we pool together as Bitcoin Ben Crypto Club members, I'm able to go and say, look, even though the person's only going to invest $50,000, I want the price points for the person who invests $3 million. Why? Because I'm pooling a number of smaller investors. So I'm getting the economies of scale. I'm getting the wholesale price. I'm getting the bulk volume price, and then being able to bring it to our club members, even if their individual deployment is a smaller amount, right? And so these are the kind of things that we can do as a team, where you and us, we can work together, leverage each other's strengths, and create the capabilities and wealth that our members deserve. Ben always says, my objective is to make the average person wealthy. I want you to have more wealth than you've ever dreamed of. And the world doesn't always give you this opportunity until there's a time when there's chaos, when the world has erupted into chaos, into wars, into crazy situations that we are seeing all around us today. And through those ashes, something beautiful comes out. This time it happens to be Bitcoin. Folks, I love that you tune in. Thank you for doing that. Thank you for being a member of the Bitcoin Ben Crypto Club. Please come on in, call our folks, have a Zoom call with us if you can't come into the office. Of course, I'd like to see your smiling faces when you do come in. We have now offices in Sarasota and Nashville and Boston and Dallas and Las Vegas and soon to be St. Louis and perhaps Palm Springs and West Palm Beach. And we are just expanding. And of course, in El Salvador, so many capabilities, so many areas where Bitcoin is going to affect the ecosystem. Bitcoin will affect banking. So we have purchased a bank so we can change it, break the system from within. Bitcoin is going to affect tourism and travel. And we bought a hotel, which is going to be a Bitcoin themed hotel. And we're doing mining in 5 different countries right now. So we are expanding our capabilities. We are expanding our team. We are on the upward slide, upward movement. There is excitement in the air. And of course, Bitcoin itself is rising, and the rising tide will rise all boats, including the Bitcoin Ben Crypto Club's boat. And we are excited about it. Bitcoin is the Noah's Ark. It is the valuable asset that you all must have, and we will help you get there. With that, God bless you. Love to each one of you, and God bless America.
Tired of jumping through hoops to buy Bitcoin? Frustrated with endless paperwork and invasive identity checks? Introducing Bitcoin Ben Crypto Club's loan program. No KYC required. Say goodbye to the hassle and hello to freedom. Borrow up to $250,000 at as little as 7% interest. Join our community and take control of your financial future. Bitcoin Ben Crypto Club, where privacy meets opportunity. Connect with like-minded individuals and grow together. Visit us today and unlock your $250,000 Bitcoin loan. Your journey to financial freedom starts here.